Hello Poppets, it's Kate here. I am jumping into your feed with an impromptu little piece of bonus content just for my wonderful patrons. It's going to be a segment that will henceforth be known as Shit Happened Here. Soon to follow in the array of content that I plan to offer my wonderful patrons is a series of book reviews that I'm calling Lit Happened Here. And yes, I am well pleased with those names, despite their obvious dad joke quality. So Shit Happened Here is going to be short little updates on anything newsy that's true crime adjacent. And I'm jumping in your feed today with the breaking news that one of the men convicted of the murder of Anni Dewani has just been granted parole as of today, 18 March 2022. In November last year, aka 2021, I released a full episode on the murder of Swiss national Anni Dewani, or Anni Hindocha, which was her maiden name. I'm not going to go through the full details of that, but here is a quick recap for you if you can't remember it very well. Anni was murdered in Cape Town in 2010 while on honeymoon, and it became known in the British press and sometimes here in South Africa as the honeymoon murder. When the news first broke about this crime, I think most of us, and certainly the British press, portrayed it this way, that this was a random crime, that Anni and her new husband, Anni Dewani, were victims of a horrible hijacking, which is unfortunately a pretty common crime, especially in South African major cities. But of course that doesn't mean that it's any less awful just because it's common. The two of them had been travelling around South Africa for a little while as part of their honeymoon, but they'd arrived at Cape Town just the day before this crime. And they'd gone out and about after dinner, driven by a local cab driver called Zola Tongo. He was the same driver who picked them up from the airport just the day before when they arrived in the mother city. Zola had taken the newlyweds on a township tour of Guguletu, and then suddenly 2 armed men appeared out of apparently nowhere and violently took possession of the car and its occupants. First Zola and then Shrien were ejected from the vehicle at various points along the route, but Anni was driven away and then shot by the hijackers. Of course, we know now that this was not just a random hijacking. The 2 men at the side of the road that night were Mzi Wamadoda Kwabe and Xolile Mngeni, and they were in league with Zola for this planned hit dressed up as random crime. When the forensics sent police back to Xolile, I think it was a fingerprint that sent him back to, put him on their radar, he pretty much sings immediately and offers up his co-conspirator. And then from there, back to Shrien, the husband, with Zola alleging that Shrien orchestrated the whole thing as a hit. Ultimately, the 3 local men are tried and convicted of murder, kidnapping, and robbery. And Zola enters into a plea bargain that reduces his own sentence to just 18 years. In exchange for that bargain, he has to testify against Shrien. And that is a whole long story. There's international back and forth between the UK and South Africa. There's various psychological treatment and observation periods, and finally a trial gets underway in South Africa, but it is ultimately dismissed off the back of largely how poor and contradictory Zola's testimony against Shrien is. And so Shrien returned to the UK as a totally free man, even though Annie's family and many other people believe that it was him behind the entire plan to murder his smart, talented, funny new wife. And I do go into the reasons that are supposed for that in the episode. I'm not going to recap them here. But Shrien is a free man in the UK. The news that brings me to my microphone this afternoon, however, is that Zola, the driver turned assassination orchestrator, has just been granted parole. Various news agencies picked up the story, but essentially the Correctional Services Department has confirmed to a couple of the news publications that 42-year-old Zola has been granted parole, having served just over half of his sentence. For the record, that's about typical for when you become eligible for parole in South Africa, unless there are extenuating circumstances or a judge has put a minimum on, etc., etc. Zola previously applied for parole in 2020, which was 9 years or the actual half of the sentence. But that attempt, as far as I understand, was initially approved and then revoked just the day before he was going to go free. And I have seen it reported that it was revoked because of intervention from Annie's family. I don't know if that will be an option to their family again this time. As far as I understand, Zola's parole will kick in on the 21st of June 2022, and he will be considered to be a parolee under conditions until the 6th of June 2028. Meanwhile, just for context, I guess, had Annie's life not been cut short in that horrific way back in 2010, she would have turned 40 this week. So that's your little news bite, or shit happened here. And tell me if you like this segment, and I'll keep doing them if you like them.